So again, welcome to Boundary Systems Multi-CAD integration with Creo. Today's objective is to review and demonstrate multi-CAD integration with Creo. Agenda will do a brief introduction of myself and Boundary Systems, and then we'll get into the multi-CAD integration with Creo overview. We'll have an application demonstration, and then some time for Q&A. So my name is John Hughes. I'm a Boundary Systems technical specialist. I've been working with PTC products starting a long time ago with Creo, as well as doing injection molding simulation. My background is in some application development, product design, primarily in plastics. There's a little bit of my background here, nothing too exciting. About Boundary Systems, we're a technology leader. Our partners include PTC, eTraj, and other technical companies. We're in the top 16 fastest growing private companies in the greater Cleveland. And actually, we've joined a global company, a part of PDSVision group of global companies. And we are located across Europe, South Africa, Asia, and the United States. Our capabilities are in product lifecycle management, data management, CAD design and consulting, various simulation, FEA, as well as molding simulation and product development. Industry awards, here's some awards we've received and continue to receive, and our major accreditations. We are a PTC Platinum Partner, a certified wind chill implementer, and a preferred service provider to PTC. We are authorized and certified training partners in Creo, Windchill, MathCAD, and ArborText. Some of Boundary Systems solutions, of course, the PTC brand and breadth of engineering products. In addition, I mentioned the injection molding simulation. We are a proud partner with MoldX 3D. We have eTraj, Xformation, and other ones. If there's any information you want on here, you can reach out to myself. I'll share my contact information and our sales and marketing information as well. So Creo Unite technology. So multi-CAD integration with Creo, empowered by Creo Unite technology, and it supports various CAD formats. So the Creo Unite technology will support non-Creo 3D files. And we have some breadths here. We'll also cover some general tips on handling non-Creo files. So there, multi-CAD. Creo Unite technology is an integrated design technology, enables consolidation of non-Creo 3D design data, including CATIA, Solidworks, NX, Autodesk Inventor. You can work in a multi-CAD environment and collaborate across CAD systems. That's either like internally with your company or externally for suppliers or downstream users. So the consolidation of non-Creo CAD data helps you achieve the following results. We minimize the time and effort spent in geometry repair and model recreation, which a lot of us have experienced. Include the non-Creo data in the model designs without creating additional objects. You can assemble non-Creo parts and assembly models to create multi-CAD assemblies in Creo. You can preserve the configurations and model structure representations of non-Creo CAD models nearly as accurately as the source CAD systems. So if your model's clean, it's going to create a model over top of your non-Creo file, and for all intent purposes, it is extremely accurate. Convert only on demand the necessary non-Creo models, components, and legacy data as Creo models, and you don't have to create the entire assembly. So you can open non-Creo parts and assembly files using the license and other software that are integrated with Creo. You can continue using the source CAD system as the design tools for the non-Creo models. Again, we can incorporate models from other CAD programs, maintain the design intent across the CAD formats, and make sure that we are staying consistent, keeping consistency in the integrity of the models across all applications and use, present and downstream. We can maintain up-to-date design data with automatic updates. So as changes, you have other suppliers or other divisions or groups that you're collaborating with other software, as they make changes and update those and share those back with you, you can easily update your model so you can continue with your original design intent. You don't have to start all over. So with that said, we can just jump right into the webinar demo. So I have my Creo 7 launched. And so of course, whatever CAD software you're working with. We're working with Creo 7. I've launched my Creo. I'm going to set the working directory where I want to work on the files. In this case, it's a demo 1 file. I've already set up that working directory. And we are going to work on this gripper model. So as we see when we launch to file open, we have a lot of options here. It defaults to the Creo files, but we have an option here to look at all files, as well as in these file options, we can see that we have your standards, you have your step, Parasolid, IGES, as well as now we've got Inventor files, NX, Solidworks part, Solidworks assembly, various of the key CATIA, V4 and V5, Solid Edge. So we have a lot more options here. But right now we're working on the Creo assembly, and we can narrow that down. This is very convenient, and when you have a very large assembly with multiple components or multiple sub-assemblies consisting of sometimes hundreds of components in each assembly. We can change this to assembly so we can narrow our search. Again, if your files are too large, we have the search option here. We're going to be working on the gripper main assembly. Nice and convenient, easy to learn, easy to use. So Creo opens this assembly, and we're continuing our designs as we move forward. We'll turn off our datums, make it a little more pleasant to see. So we've got this file. This is a medium-sized file compared to a lot. And we're going to work on a component that is in here and we can't see it. So in the model tree, we can highlight and select the geometry or the components and assemblies that we do not want to look at. We have our mini toolbar, so quick, easy access at your fingers. We can hide this display, so now we're only seeing the components that we want to work on. So we've been working on this assembly. We have another division or another supplier that is providing another component, but that component is in Solidworks. So we have this assembly. It's as easy as going to assemble. This is assuming we received our assembly. We brought it into this project folder where we're working. Again, we go to the file types. We can scroll down and find our Solidworks part or assembly. In this case, it's an assembly. We know that when we received it. So we have this gearbox assembly, Solidworks. We can see it's a solid assembly. It's not a PRT, so it is not a Creo part. Open. This will bring that assembly into the Solidworks assembly into this assembly. Now, for expedience, we've got we made sure that we were working with standard coordinate systems. So this has been preset. This just simplifies the presentation. We can go through the process of doing a placement manually, and you have to select three placements unless you do the coordinate systems. So we've assembled this Solidworks assembly into our Creo assembly. There's a little bit of lag here, my apologies. So again, we were talking about the different assemblies. So here's your Creo assembly. If we look in the model tree, and under the components, if we expand these out, so we expanded the assembly, it's made of 3 Creo part files. We have our parametric model tree of the features that were used to design that component. And in the SolidWorks, so in the SolidWorks assembly, these are the SolidWorks part files that were provided by the supplier. And although it doesn't have the model tree here, we are working on a representation of the SolidWorks part and assembly without modifying its original design intent. And this is just for updating the model. It's for collaboration across different CAD programs. Okay. So we've assembled this SolidWorks file on here, and as we see that this component we've been waiting for, it impacts this Creo part file that we're responsible for. So in Creo, it's easy. We want to integrate or modify this part to reflect this model so we can receive that and complete the assembly. So we can select, again, Creo is intuitive. We can select a surface on a part that we need to modify. It'll highlight it in the model tree. Or again, if we select it, we have these at your fingertip access, this mini toolbar, and we can activate this part. So we've got this large assembly. We want to focus on one part only. Now we're going to make a cut here with this SolidWorks assembly, and we're going to reference some geometry here. So we've activated this part. Select copy geometry, and we want to publish geometry only. And we want to utilize these surfaces on this part. And options, we want to do manual update in this case. You can do automatic, but manual, this is going to guide us through so we are physically forced to see any changes if this model or any of these components are changed that are used to reference. And we want to provide notification, select OK. Okay, we're still active in this part, and we're going to create a cut. So what I want to do is I want to turn off and hide the SolidWorks assembly so that I can work a little more cleanly. Extrude. We're going to extrude a cut. And I'm going to use, I know the datum plane, of course, I want to use. Offset. So we're going to select the reference data that was copied from the SolidWorks file. And I'm going to create a clearance on this. Oops. Yeah. So I can redo that or just modify that. Corner this up, and then we're going to put a fillet. A couple different ways to do it. Dimension 0.2. And we want these radii, these fillets in the corners to be equal. So we've created that, used that reference data, created our geometry, our sketch to do the cut. And we want to select remove material and determine our depth. We're going to do both sides through all. Obviously, we have options. We can do up to, next, or through, or a specific depth. We'll just go through all in the event that this design changes later. That cut would reflect it if this component becomes wider. Okay, so we can now hide that. We can resume and see our SolidWorks, and we're going to now go back and restore. So we're getting back into the assembly, activating the whole assembly. So now we can see that cut was implemented in here. Oh, we see we've got another change. And now we received this, we have to make a change on this. To go through the same process, let's select this part, activate. We need to create a receiving boss, copy geometry, go through the same processes. We want to publish only. We can set the options now, or we can set these later. Make sure you set that. And okay. Now, before we worked on this other part in the assembly mode, the other option is we can just go right into and either open the part through the model tree, or we can open it from in here. But we're going to open the part. We're going to implement or make that design change within the part. So we have this reference data that we brought over. It's brought in from the assembly. Copy geometry. We're going to create an extrude. And depending on how you want that dimensioned, whatever your design intent is, or it's going to be for the drawing, a couple different options we can do. In this case, we want to perhaps make sure that there's a minimum distance of steel or plastic, whatever this component is made of 0.18. You know, if we want, we can always go and put a dimension, a diameter, a radius, whatever is your company's policy. Select OK. So it just picks a random depth. We want to go up to that surface, and then we want to extend it. So without having to go and measure, we extend it up to a surface, and then we're going to extend it either positive or negative. We can pick the direction depending on what we want. We can do a drag to a depth, or you can manually type in a depth. Okay, so as we see here, we've updated this geometry. You can go add other features, but depending on where you're at in the design process. And if we close this, we can just close this here. And I should have that turned better, but as you saw that it updated this geometry in this part. So with that said, so we made these changes. We've updated this model. We're working. Our portion of the design is done. So at the end of the day, we save this. And we go ahead and we are done. We close this out. Erase not displayed. So we're done, whether it's a couple hours, couple days, weeks, or months. The supplier or whoever else is working on that other part has made changes. They send it to us in an email or whatever format to download from their FTP site. And so we have received modified Solidworks files. So we receive these files. What you would want to do is, assuming that the names have not changed. So they've been working on the integrity of their designs and that assembly. They have maintained the naming scheme for all of it. They haven't replaced the name or that. But assuming everything is the same, we receive these files. So these are our newer files. We are going to save them into the folder that we're working on, where we had the assembly that we had worked on, whether it was a couple hours ago, week ago, month ago, whatever. So we have got 9 updated files. We go back through the process. So we get these new files. Now we're supposed to check and make sure what impact it had on our assembly. We're going to open that back up. Sorry about that. Okay, so we've opened up the assembly. Again, it's a busy assembly. We can't really see the impact on ours. We're going to go through the process of hiding the display. Okay, we zoom in and we look at this change. So obviously this new assembly, the cut that we had in our part is not sufficient. So when we mark those notifications, we get this little window down here that there are 2 notifications, 2 outdated placement notifications, open notification center. Can locate this in the model tree. So it highlights and shows these modifications. Of course, those were the 2 reference geometry. And had you worked on other parts and other things changed and you imported these, those would be reflected as well. So we're going to focus on this one change first. Again, everything's at your fingertips. We want to select that failed geometry or with the notification, update control, and show difference. So now this is still a bit busy. We can isolate and show just the differences. There's a nice thing. The orange is the changed. And we've got our updated. So it shows what changed. There's a couple options here. You can go back in and manually do it, but again, at your fingertips. It still kept that reference data. We want to update the model. And it updated keeping our dimensions that we had relative to the reference data. So it updated this here. We only have 1 notification left. Again, so these changes, and then there it goes. That's why we put that linear dimension instead of a diameter or radius. Now, it's hard to see, but it removed the notifications. This part is now updated. And as we see, perhaps what we received from the assembly, that these screws, bolts were not moved properly. So another things that we can do that we can clean that up on our end. We can go back and ask the supplier to fix it. Again, so this still shows that there's some other areas that may need working, but when it was in the design process, the supplier sent us this component which made the changes that impacted our cut. Now let's go ahead and if we want to, so as we can see, this is a Solidworks screw. We can select it. We're not making any changes to the geometry, but we can redefine its orientation and placement. And we can update. Obviously, we can save this off. We can use this as images. We can save these files off as step repair solid or share that data back. And we're not making any design changes to the native non-Creo CAD file, but we're updating the assembly and we're collaborating across different CAD programs and formats, different companies, different users. So the nice power of this Creo multi-CAD collaboration empowered by Creo Unite, it just saves a lot of time. You're not, of course, we've all experienced where you're importing step or parasolid, or you're doing an import of the native CAD file, but it still converts it to perhaps a dumb solid. And there's other options on here later, maybe for another presentation, but to do some flexible modeling and make additional changes if we were to change this component and add geometry after, and then to share back with your suppliers or your downstream or upstream resources. So with that said, let's go back to the presentation. So Q&A time. My contact information is here on the screen, as well as our sales questions can be reached at sales@boundarysystems.com. Any emails to myself or the company, we will respond as quick as possible, as well as if there's any questions that are proposed in this in our chat, we will address now and or respond back to you afterwards. So with that said, do we have any questions? How to get the properties info of non-Creo CAD files to Creo drawings. Let's see. There are options to do that. I need to go back and look. It really depends on what information was supplied in the non-Creo CAD files. If those properties were specified in there, that information does come across. And if it's okay, I will do some more refined research on that and get back to you with that question. Let's see, we have another question. Can you run through the assembly process one more time? Yes, I can run through that. So I'm going to have to start this over. I can open up another Creo. I may be able to just do it in the other one. Okay, so we've got this assembled. When you bring it in, if you have at least some common coordinate systems, or you've got that stuff perhaps set when you communicated with your supplier or downstream, you can use that. The other options are you can use all these options: distance, angle, offset, parallel, centered, automatic. Maybe best to go through that process again. So we will reselect the select working directory. Again, your files, you got a lot of files in this. You want to narrow it down. You can narrow it down by type. Assembly or part drawing. Further, you can do a search. Open up the assembly. Declutter, turn off my datums. And again, I know that I don't want to see these, so you can hide or suppress, but just hide the components that aren't relevant to what you're working on. Now we received or we have non-Creo 3D files. and we're going to assemble, whether it is a part or an assembly. In this case, it's an assembly. Now, again, in our case, to make it easy for expedience, we had the datum coordinate system established. But, I mean, assuming everything, any CAD program, when you receive that data, it is going to have reference datums. So you can go and manually place it. And of course, you can kind of move it out of your way easy just to make sure you have certain reference data. And this may not be exactly correct, but again, so you can assemble it manually very easily, typically in 3 picks, unless you have a coordinate system. Does that answer your question? Are you showing the out-of-the-box Creo 7, or is it also an add-on? This is out of the box. I do need to confirm that. It should be out of the box. Let's see, I'm sorry. Are you showing the out-of-the-box Creo 7, or is this also an add-in? There are some other add-ins, but I believe starting in Creo 3, you can open up or import Solidworks, CAD, and other ones. If both Solidworks and Creo are managed in Windchill, will it still let you edit Solidworks on the fly? Yeah, we're not modifying the Solidworks file itself. We're using that for references. You can add in Creo, if you're comfortable working in Creo, you can do some flex modeling, and you can make changes to a Solidworks part and reflect that back. But it doesn't physically make the changes. That is just more for reference. So you would have to then go back in and then should properly modify the Solidworks if that is going to be your driving CAD file. So again, thank you for your time. If you require further information, I can be reached at jhughes@boundarysys.com, our sales department, and we can leave this open for a little bit longer to see if there are any more questions. And we will probably be reaching out as well to attendees to see if you have anything further. And again, there's so much more options to look at, but this demo would go a lot further. And we just wanted to highlight the value of receiving non-Creo native files and to be able to bring those in and avoid all that process that we used to have to do before of converting it to a step or a parasolid. And then bringing that in and then perhaps trying to clean it up. Like I said, it makes a very accurate or close representation of the model for all intent purposes. Over the top, just to use that reference data. Again, it's just a very powerful tool for collaboration, saving time up front, getting to manufacturing to the next level in the process, and or to market a lot faster. Let's see. In your directory, you were showing a solid assembly and a solid Creo file. How do PDM systems handle the extra file that was created? It is, I will have to get back to you on that. We will get back to you on that. That is it's a representation. And again, we're not changing the Solidworks assembly. It is conversion file that's used for reference. So it's an in-between. Again, it's avoiding that export import of a non-related geometry as far as step or parasolid. And then this is just that process that as long as the name has not changed, if you update the solid assembly or one of the Solidworks parts in that assembly, and then you go to update this, it'll point out those notifications. It'll recognize that there was a change and identify. There's a way to do the automatic, but in this case, we just wanted to show that the power of it to tell you that changes were made. There was updates to some component or model in there since the last time you looked at it, and you need to be aware of it and then see and implement the changes to fix that. So as far as on the windshield, yeah, that solid assembly.creo file will stay in there, but it'll be linked to the Solidworks assembly file. Or like we saw, it could be assemble. Again, we've got all these options. It can be a CATIA file, of course, SolidWorks NX, Inventor, Solid Edge, and I'm sure as Creo goes, if there's any other ones that are heavily used in industries, that they may add those as well. Just checking to see if there's any other questions. Are you able to suppress features in the SolidWorks native files? Threads, for example. No, technically you cannot suppress anything. We can suppress a part. So let's go back in and actually try that. But no, you should not be able to make any changes. The intent is not to go and make any changes to the SolidWorks part, because it has done this conversion to body. There's options to modify geometry through flexible modeling, but to not physically go and change the original design intent or the design as in the model structure in SolidWorks. So any change that you have to do, you can reflect some of those through the flex modeling and relay that back to the designer that's working in SolidWorks. And then they will have a reference model to use to modify and or change those. But it would be recommended, if SolidWorks is being the control CAD program for those components, that the designer in that should update that accordingly. Again, if you have any questions after this later, my email information, send it to myself as well as sales@boundarysys.com. We will get back to you. We will provide more detail or an opportunity just to see how Creo can be better utilized within your company and your applications. And again, after this is completed, the recording will be posted. And please also visit Boundary Systems. We have a Boundary Systems YouTube channel. Okay. Well, something's not working right. But yes, please visit Boundary Systems, boundarysys.com, and check out some of our other webinars on there. And we will be doing new webinars as we go. We've been focusing right now on some Creo 7, and we will then be focusing as Creo 8 has come out and there's some changes. And as things progress, we'll be updating and doing various webinars on different aspects and functionality of the breadth of Creo products. And again, hopefully thank you for your time. Hopefully that was educational. And you can see that the ease of use in Creo, it is a very easy to use and intuitive program. Again, thank you for your time. Have a good rest of your day and week. I'm sorry, I see that there was a couple 3 question marks, so I missed. If you can restate that question again, I can see about answering that. I think from Kai. Missed the beginning due to technical issues. Is this a module add-on? No, this is not a module add-on. It is, there are some additional extensions for some other things, but the Creo Unite, I believe, is included in Creo. So we can always check and see. You should be able to go and check and see when you launch Creo if you have the options of when you do file open, and to check in your type, your file type, to see what is listed. If you have any questions, again, I would send that to my email address, and I'll make sure that we get a proper response and/or to the right people.